Hello everyone, welcome back to my F1 diary. Before we start, I want to apologize in advance if I seem on edge today because I had a very rough weekend regardless of the race, and then I also had the race, so I'm not in the best mood. So if I rush through things or seem irritated, I am, but that's okay. The lighting might also change quite a bit because I'm recording this at 6 a.m. because I just couldn't sleep, so I'm also running on 0 hours of sleep today, but the sun probably will change and whatever. It's okay. Let's talk about F1. Before the actual race, we had the 2026 calendar drop. No major changes except, of course, Imola, who is not returning for the calendar in 2026. Instead, we will have Madrid, which I talked about in the last video quite a bit. I honestly don't really have much to add. I'm not attached to any of the circuits, so this does not evoke strong emotions for me. So I can just hope that Madrid will provide good racing, and that's pretty much my 2 cents on it. Except for that, there's also been some scheduling changes that are made in effort of making F1 a bit more eco-friendly. So we'll have Canada right after Miami instead of after Miami going to Europe and then back to North America for Canada and then back to Europe like we have this year. So it will be Miami, Canada, and then going to like a full European leg, making it just one overseas trip instead of 3 like we have now. It could be interesting with the Canada weather, given that this year in May, which is when we're supposed to race in Canada next year, there was still snow in Canada, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we don't have a cancelled Canadian Grand Prix next year. But for this year, we had Haas with a special livery and suits marking their 200th race in F1. The livery and race suits reference their first livery and race suits in F1. And they also have all the names of everyone who works in Haas on the front wings, which is always nice to see. The livery and suits themselves also look great in my opinion, so that's cool. Nice job. The C6 tires are here again as the softs for this race. I am not sure if I love them or I hate them because they bring a lot of uncertainty, especially in qualifying, raising the question of which tire is better for qualifying. Is it the medium or the softs? Which I guess does spice things up for qualifying and also for the race, because those who run mediums in qualifying obviously don't have the same amount of new mediums, at least for the race. So it does spice things up, but I just don't love the fact that the medium is better than the soft. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be, you know? I just feel that they might overcomplicate things without improving anything, but then again, also, obviously, they do make things a bit unpredictable for everyone involved, including the teams. So maybe they're good. I don't know. This track, honestly, I don't love it. It is pretty low grip and it also requires low downforce to maximize lap times because a lot of the track is straights. So those two combined make it very loosey-goosey, and that must feel very bad to drive. And this weekend specifically, it seemed to like reset for every session instead of evolving from session to session, even with the F1 Academy running as well, which I thought was weird, but okay. You can also see like all the dust and fuzzy like things floating in the air for the entire thing, which like gives you a visual representation of how dusty and dirty the track is, and also seemed like a nightmare for anyone who had allergies there. So I don't feel like it's nice to drive, and also it kind of puts McLaren in a disadvantage because, as I said, you need good straight line speed, which McLaren usually lack. The McLaren is pretty draggy, unfortunately. And now we've seen how McLaren really struggled in practice. Specifically, they were really not great throughout practice and even qualifying and even in the race. So yeah, not a fan of this track. A team who did excel in practice, which was kind of expected honestly, was Mercedes, who do well in cooler conditions, and they obviously went on to win the race, get their first win of the season, a double podium with Kimi in P3 as well. We'll get to that later. But qualifying, throughout all the sessions, a bunch of people went on mediums. Alonso, I think, went only on mediums throughout the entire thing, didn't even try to like put on softs, which was maybe actually worth it because he did qualify P5, I think, or sorry, P6, but that obviously left him with, I think, no mediums at all, like new mediums for the race. So maybe that a bit of a disadvantage there, but maybe they did prefer to have track position over race pace. Anyway, some other stuff that happened in qualifying. In Q1, Alex's bodywork just came off of his car like on a straight, which was pretty hilarious to watch. Honestly, it just seemed like it exploded off his car. And I think someone reprimanded the Williams garage, because I mean, you can only hope that it was human error and that they don't have actually anything structurally wrong with their bodywork to worry about. So that was a bit funny. We also had Franco getting into Q2 for the first time, I think, this season. Definitely the first time he out-qualified Pierre. So maybe some improvement there. Maybe we won't see a replacement in Silverstone. I don't know. He still didn't get into points, so I don't know how much that was worth for Alpine, or like encouraging for them to keep him. Yuki also got himself into Q2. He qualified 11th, but had a 10-place grid penalty for overtaking under red flag conditions in one of the practices. Isaac qualified P9, but he also had a 3-place grid penalty because he impeded Carlos in Q1, I believe. Yeah, Q1. So that actually brought Franco up to starting in P10 for the race. So he had a good opportunity to actually score points, but honestly, I don't know what happened there because I didn't follow his race, but he obviously couldn't manage to do that. Then we had George taking pole on the mediums, with Max in P2 also on the mediums. Oscar only in P3 for this weekend. I think it's his worst start of the year, maybe, perhaps. I think it is, which is very impressive from Oscar, but also goes to show you like how the McLarens were not great. I mean, we didn't try to go on the mediums. Maybe it would have been a different picture if we did, but we don't like to take risks, apparently. So that didn't happen. Kimi qualified P4, also on the mediums, I believe. Lewis Hamilton in P5. Alonso in P6, I said, on the mediums. Norris, unfortunately, did not have a good qualifying, or he did have a good qualifying, just not a good Q3. He qualified P7. He, on his first run, he caught the last chicane, so obviously that didn't count. And then on his second lap on those tires, he got to P5, and then he couldn't improve on his third lap on new softs and qualifies, as I said, P7. Charles in P8 also had a massive like slide in one of the turns, so he couldn't improve. Hedger, I said, qualified at 9 but had a grid penalty, so it was Alex in P9 starting for the race, and then after also penalties for Yuki, Colapinto was up in P10 for the race. And George and Max qualifying P1 and P2 just gave the green light for the whole ordeal with them to continue to be in the center of attention, which honestly, it is getting a bit old. Like, there's literally nothing left to say about the situation. Max apologized, said it shouldn't have happened, took responsibility, like, let's move on. But George himself brought it up in his post-quali interview, and he was a real menace there. He was asked about Max obviously starting right next to him, and he said, "It's okay, we're mates," laughing it off. But then specifically when asked about turn 1, he said that he has a few more points on his license to play with, which really riled up the crowd. I don't think even in a good way, because I mean, that is shady. George is definitely having fun with this, I have to say. I feel like he loves pulling on Max's strings. This is obviously kind of an ongoing beef from not even just last year. It was, I think, Baku in 2023 when they had like a little contact or something like that. And then obviously last year, I don't even remember when it was, but it was about like, I don't know, something happened in the steward's room, and that's where the iconic George rant about Max being aggressive and unnecessarily angry comes from. So the beef is going on and George is having fun with it. Max is pretty much done with it. I think he's done with George and obviously done with the media, trying to rehash it in every chance they get. But it was actually a clean race between the two today, almost with no drama. We did have some drama between the two in the late stages of the race with the safety car. George was had a Max for the whole race. Max did put him a bit under pressure in the opening stages of it, but then I feel like his tires just gave up and he had to back off. So George pretty much had it under control for the whole time. But then on lap 67, I think it was, when the safety car came out and they were all behind the safety car, there was a point where George braked a bit too hard, in Max's words, erratically braking. So Max threats him out for that. And because he braked harder than Max thought, Max overtook him under safety car, which is obviously not allowed. So George redded him out for that. And they were basically having a diva off at that point. GP had to come onto the radio and basically tell Max to not fall for the rage bait this time. And he didn't actually like have any choice, because the race ended under the safety car, unfortunately. So we didn't get to see a last scrap battle between the two, which could have been exciting maybe. But honestly, I don't know if it would have actually changed anything. I think they were both on the same Lapple tires, or about the same, maybe George even with fresher tires. So I don't think it would have changed anything. Maybe would have caused a bit more drama, which honestly was unnecessary for them or for this race. So that was a whole George and Max thing. But we did get some like post-race drama between them, because Red Bull protested George's win because of like what happened under the safety car. So they took it to the stewards again, and like nothing came out of it, but they did try to create some drama. And I wonder how it went this time in the stewards room between George and Max. But either way, their dynamic is pretty funny. They like either really hate each other, or they are like buddy, it's okay, we were on the podium together, yay, let's have fun, let's drink champagne, whatever. So pretty funny, not gonna lie, the whole ordeal. But we do need to let like their beef go as like a joke in the F1 community, and also as a topic for the media to be talking about constantly. So that was them. Ferrari did not have the best weekend, maybe better than I expected, which just goes to show how bad or like low my expectations from Ferrari are at this point of the year. I mean, it was definitely better than last year, where I don't even
music like 10 seconds enough
want to remember.
Zone moment. Oh, it's gutting for Albon.
Or what happened last year. So maybe my expectations were based a little bit on that, and also the lack of performance that we've seen from them this year. But yeah, Ferrari has been in a little bit of a weird position, where there have been rumors that Charles is gonna jump ship and they're gonna fire Fred Vasseur and replace him with Christian Horner and stuff like that, which are all not true. Maybe Fred is being looked at under a bit of a magnifying glass at the moment, because the team is not performing as much as they want to. But I don't think anything's gonna happen this year to Fred, and obviously Charles is not jumping ship from Ferrari, not only because he's so committed to Ferrari, but also because there is no reason to leave your team between 2025 and 2026, when next year everything's gonna be clean slate. You cannot predict which team is gonna have it, so no point in leaving your team. So anyways, their race, Ferraris, I'll start with Lewis, because there's really nothing to talk about with Lewis's race. He unfortunately hit a ground dog on lap 13, which left him with damage. He lost 20 points of downforce, whatever that means. So he didn't really have pace. So I guess we'll take a moment of silence in remembrance of that groundhog and I guess Lewis's race. Anyways, it was pretty funny how he was like in no man's land for the entirety of the race, and that every time anyone from the top, I think 6, needed to pit, they would just be fitted back ahead of Hamilton. Like the gap would always be between Hamilton and whoever was in front of him. So that was a bit funny to me, at least. He finished P6, so I mean that's pretty good considering everything. Charles had a bit of a more complicated race. He started P8, as I said, and so he was on the alternative strategy. He started on hards and went long, and I actually seemed to have decent race pace. They were talking on the radio and it seemed like to be going quite well. I mean, Ferrari suggested plan B. Charles said, no, I want plan C. Ferrari said, okay. And that seemed promising. But then Ferrari pitted him for another set of hards. So they committed to a 2-stop race, which Charles and some of us too were pretty confused about. So when Charles asked, what is going on? What are we doing? And Ferrari said, we're on plan B. I mean, come on. So that was pretty disappointing from Ferrari. I think they were also pitted him, like the second pit they did wasn't in the right timing exactly. Like Charles was very happy to stay out and he felt like he could do a lot better on whatever tire he was on, and then like on the medium he felt like they would be a good race tire for him. But Ferrari did not listen to their driver, did their own strategy, which I mean it didn't really work. Like it did work, but it didn't really work. I feel like they could have maybe I don't know what they could have, but anyways, he finished P5, which again is pretty good. He obviously climbed 3 places up, so at least he made progress. And some other stuff from the race, Alex had to DNF with another Mercedes power unit issue. Again, very concerning. Starting the race, they said to him that they have like a similar issue like they did in Barcelona, but it was less severe. But at the end of the day, it was severe enough to have him DNF. But even before he DNF'd, he was not having a good time in the car. Like Charles, he was upset with his strategy and when they chose to box him. So not a great day for Alex, unfortunately. Liam also DNF'd somewhere in there with also a power unit issue, which was a bit strange given that they just put a new one in, from my understanding at least. Maybe I'm understanding it wrong, but before the race he got like 50 plays grid penalty for replacing 5 components, which made him start from the pit lane. But I think one of those components was a power unit. So if that power unit was, I mean, I don't know. Very weird, I would say, but that's not a Mercedes engine, so I don't know, maybe some power unit issue with every team now. I don't know. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the meat and bones of this race, Lando and Oscar. I'll start with Oscar, move to Lando, and then I'll talk about them together. Oscar did not have the best race, regardless of what happened. He started P3, but then was overtaken by Kimi, I think until turn 1 or like 2, so he lost that place and couldn't get it back, so that meant he ended in P4. And then Lando started P7, like Charles, went on the alternative strategy and started on hards. He overtook Fernando and Lewis pretty easily, and from that point on he was behind Oscar on like a net gain look over the race. And honestly, with the way McLaren were pitting the both of them, I think they were trying to prevent an actual fight between them from happening, because every time Lando was closing up on Oscar, Oscar would just pit. And after their first stops for both of them, when Lando was on mediums behind Oscar, who was on hards, and Lando was getting closer, again, Oscar pitted, and instead of letting Lando get some fresh air, maybe try an overcut or allow some tire delta at the end of the race, they pitted him like 2 laps after Oscar. So I feel like they tried to maintain places in the way that they were, but we did get a fight. Lando did close up enough to Oscar, and we finally got a battle between the two that was so anticipated, that unfortunately ended horribly for Lando in an accident that is very reminiscent actually of Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton in the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix, also teammates at McLaren at the time, which I do want to note that I did think about that before the commentator said that as well, and I'm very proud of me for that. Like, it always feels amazing thinking something and then the commentators say it. I feel like an expert, so very proud of me for that moment. But yeah, Lando was closing in really well actually, and then just went for a gap that wasn't there. He thought Oscar would move a bit more to the right, which he didn't. They touched, Lando lost his front wing and was out of the race basically. Thankfully, Oscar was not harmed at all, but that obviously brought the safety car, which then caused all the drama between Max and George, and also some other drama. We had a lot of like safety car infringement investigations after the race, but nothing came out of it, so pretty chaotic. I mean, it is a shame that the race ended up under safety car. Again, I would have liked to see Max and George try something, but also Oscar was on new softs, or maybe not new softs, but softs, in contrast to Kimi ahead on very old hard tires. So maybe could have seen something there, but obviously there was no time for any racing laps, and the race ended as it did. George won the race with Max in P2 and Kimi in P3, his first podium in F1. He is the third youngest driver to be on a podium in F1. I am guessing the top two are Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, so that's a great achievement. It is also the first podium this season with no McLaren drivers on it, which was pretty evident in the cooldown room, which was so dry and boring without Lando specifically. So if anything, it is in everyone's favor to have Lando in the top three, just to have good cooldown rooms. And then we have Oscar in P4, Charles P5, Lewis P6, Fernando Alonso on P7, which he did a great job this weekend. Obviously qualified high with the mediums in qualifying. Then in the race, he was like down in P20 at some point, I think. So I don't know how he ended up so low in the order and then up back so high. So honestly don't know what happened there, but good on him. Nico Hülkenberg in P8, securing more points for Sauber, which is great to see. Esteban Ocon in P9 with 2 points for Haas, which is a great result for the 200th Grand Prix. And Carlos Sainz closing the top 10 with 1 point. I think he did a one stop, maybe? Maybe not. Maybe I'm just pulling that out of my ass. But he definitely tried to do a one stop. Maybe like he did a one stop, but then under the safety car, he pitted again. Maybe, I honestly don't know, but I think he did a one stop. Either way, he's in P10, he has a point, so that's great. And yeah, honestly, even though this was a horrible weekend for Lando, I think there's some encouraging things to take from it. He was faster than Oscar for the most part and genuinely had a great race up until that moment of his mistake. So that's encouraging on that part. And also, I think he really improved on his mentality and attitude towards like his mistakes or not being as good at, or as competitive as he wants, because both on his quali results and race results he was very mature about it all, was honest, took responsibility, but did not beat himself up or was too down on himself like he used to be. So that is very encouraging to see, I think, as a Lando fan. And I mean, it's not detrimental to his championship hopes. He's not out of it, as a lot of people love to say. It's only 22 points. We have such a long season ahead. I still believe in him and I will always back him up. It was a stupid mistake, just to be clear. It was a stupid mistake and totally his fault. But again, I loved how he reacted to it, immediately took blame and apologized to the team and Oscar as a good driver would. And I also love how Oscar as well reacted to the whole thing. He wasn't gloating or anything. I mean, he obviously didn't have the best race regardless, but he wasn't happy that Lando crashed and that extends his championship lead. He's also not too relaxed about the championship lead, as he knows that it is still wide open. So yeah, collision between the two was inevitable. Everyone said it, including Zach and Andrea and Lando and Oscar. It just happens when two drivers are competing for a championship. I also think it's very fair and right that McLaren didn't have any team rules. Like, they rightfully didn't ask them to keep positions or let Lando ahead to try and get Kimi. So I think it was a right move to not have any team orders, and I don't think this will change anything in McLaren about their engagement rules. And I honestly think everyone involved really handled the situation in the best way possible. Obviously, it's not something they want to happen, but they were aware that it could get messy. And now that it did, they were very mature about it, very respectful. They always are. I love Lando Oscar's approach to the rivalry. They're very aware of it, but they're always very fair and mature about it, which in my opinion, speaks volume to the kind of people and drivers that they are. And I really respect that in both of them. One of the reasons I love them both so much. I think they set a great example of sportsmanship and being a great teammate, even in a title battle. Again, really reassuring that I chose the right drivers to cheer for. And yeah, I think this was it. Next, we have another weekend with no racing, and then we have Austria, which is my favorite track on the calendar. Hopefully will be the polar opposite of Canada, and we'll see a Lando come back. Amen. But until then, enjoy these memes. Bye.